morning, guys. So it is now 6:30 in the morning. I try to wake up around 5. However, this morning I did get up at 4:30. Sometimes I get up as late as 6:30. It kind of just depends on where I'm at, but I'm always kind of aiming for 5 so that I can get up before my littles, get some things done, get myself prepared for the day so that I can be a good mama by the time that they wake up. So 6:30. I have a lot of things to do today. Today is sourdough day. I am so excited. So I have bought these wheat berries, and hopefully I grow my own wheat berries soon, but I'm not there yet. So I bought wheat berries. I've sprouted them. I am going to make my own sourdough starter and take you along my journey of sourdough bread. So this video is probably going to be over the course of a week or a few weeks, or we'll see how it goes. So, but today, sprouting wheat berries, grinding my own flour, canning tomatoes, and preserving all of those potatoes that you saw me buy in my grocery haul. It's time to do that. So I have all of the things planned, and of course, school and life and children and farm stuff, feeding all the people and animals, all the things mixed in there. But thank you for coming along with me. So I have been soaking my seeds and rinsing them each day. I rinse them thoroughly. This would have done better in like a mesh strainer just for the aeration of it, but I didn't have one. I will next time, but I didn't have one. So I have been soaking them and rinsing them well for 5 days. You want to rinse them really well and drain them to make sure that they don't mold or go a bit sour, and set them in a warm, sunny spot is even preferable. It doesn't have to be sunny, but sun is always good with seeds and grain, right? So this is them after 5 days. Look at my grains. It's all sprouted. You can dry these out in an oven at its lowest setting at about 170. It'll be fine. It's preferable to do it in a dehydrator at 110 because it will maintain some of the nutrients at a lower setting. So, but if you don't have a dehydrator, an oven will be just fine. Yes, you will lose a little bit of nutrients, but that's okay. It's still better for you than most breads that you'll buy at the store. So I'm going to dehydrate it, and then after they're thoroughly dehydrated and dried out, I am going to throw them in my blender and grind them up and have a beautiful sprouted flour to make some bread. Another thing I'm going to be working on today is clearing things out of the freezer that don't have to be there. Sometimes whenever I'm in a hurry, I throw our harvest, our veggies into the freezer to can at a later date, but today is that date. So I just have some cherry tomatoes, and I am just going to can them whole and plain and just use them in the cooking that way. So I have got that project going on today. I have got out our big crock pot, the 24 quart. So I am going to get that going, sterilize my jars, and get all the things done. And while I'm doing the canning, I have homeschool going. We just have all of the things going on today. Okay, so I have some of those tomatoes, and not all of them, in this really big pot and my even bigger pot. Like I said, this one's 24 quarts. I'm not sure how big this one is, but I have them all in here. I am going to do a hot pack and cook them and then fill them in my jars and hopefully get them done. I'm doing these a little bit later than I had hoped, and I have to start dinner soon, so we're gonna get going on these. So if you want to peel your tomatoes, mine have been frozen, so they're cracked down the middle, and when those frozen tomatoes hit that hot water, the skin just peels off, no problem at all. It's not necessary. Some people don't like it. They say that the skins roll up and put little hard bits in there. I do my salsa with the skins on. There's so many nutrients in it, and I just don't have any problems. But like I said, it depends on your preference and what you want, but you also can take a little paring knife. If you put a little slit there, that is just gonna fall right off. But you do what you want to do, and those skins won't hurt anything. I'm removing a few just because, but not necessary. Whenever you have a tomato that you blanch like this too, on the stem end, you can just do like this, and it shoots right out. This is that tomato in whole form. You can't do it the other way. It has to be on the stem end, but you just give it a squeeze. Here's another one. See, there's the stem end, and see if I can catch it. There you go, tomato depeeled. I just finished. I am processing the tomatoes and I went ahead and peeled them and it took forever. So do not do it unless it's important to you. But there it is, and it is almost done. I had to pause everything to get dinner done, and now it is very late, but I am almost there. I've added Italian seasoning to about half of these. Remember, if you do this step, not to add too much, because a little will go a long way. Over time on your shelf, sitting there, those Italian seasonings will become very strong in flavor. Okay, I have all of my grains dried out from my dehydrator, and I am about to put them in my blender and grind them up to be flour. I don't have the best blender, but it's gonna do just fine. So even with my smoothie blender, I was able to make flour out of that grain, and now I'm going to make my sourdough starter. I am so excited. This is a testament that you can use what you have to achieve a goal. I would love to have a flour mill, but I'm not there yet, and this worked just fine. So we are going to add equal parts flour and water into this jar to make the sourdough starter for the very first time. Now I'm going to put the sourdough starter on a warm ledge in my kitchen and see what happens. So this is the second day after I started my sourdough starter. And there is already some activity going on in there. We saw activity yesterday. Now there is some major activity. Very excited. So now I'm about to give it its first feeding. I am going to add 1 cup of the sourdough starter, 1 cup of water, and just a little bit less than 2 cups of my flour. Feeding is done and it is looking good. I'm going to remark that side. And this is day 3 for Herman, my sourdough starter. And he is growing up to be a big boy because now he is all the way up there, and I am super excited because it is just very alive. Again, I apologize for the horrible lighting right now, but I'm about to feed this little man and make him into something great very soon. Here is my bubbly, alive Herman, the sourdough starter, and I am about to feed him because today is the day that we make sourdough bread. So I am going to proof it to be ready to be baked tomorrow, and I am going to use the discarded part of the starter to make rosemary crackers. So we are just going to try all the things. I am super excited, and I am just ready to get this going. I'm going to give him a stir. I'll show you what this looks like. It is a bit watery. That's because he hasn't been fed yet. I am going to discard about half of this, which, like I said, I am going to use to make some yummy crackers. You do not have to waste that discarded starter. I just pulled some potatoes out of my dehydrator from that potato sale that I found. Now, a couple of potatoes did not get blanched properly, and they look a little bit black. I don't know how that happened. If you have a black potato from the dehydrator, it's still good. It's just not appealing because who wants to eat a black potato, right? But it's not bad Based on my research, these can last up to 1 to 2 years if stored properly. I will use my food saver bags and oxygen absorbers. I don't know. I've never stored them before. I think that they would last longer than that. However, we will see. I'll have to do an experiment and date them. I made these with the intent of making my scalloped potatoes because my family really enjoys that recipe. So I'm actually going to use some of these to rehydrate and see how that actually turns out and if it is still good. So we will see. And if it is good, then this is definitely fantastic for my family. Even if it does only last a year or two, I can just keep that in rotation if it's something that tastes good. So I will let you know how that goes. I am out of my food saver bags. So for the moment, I am going to put them in this dark jar with an oxygen absorber. And that will do for right now. I hear you. A mandolin would be very useful right now. However, I'm kind of finding these potatoes just to be very therapeutic. I don't mind sitting here peeling and slicing while, the kids do school or whatever. It doesn't bother me. I'm loving this knife my husband got me for Christmas. Super sharp, love it. So that, I'm actually doing a little experiment. I'm gonna see if I like the way these dehydrate with skin on. I'm not sure I will do this for the rest, but we will see.
These have hunters on it, so that's $200. $200. Wait, I'm gonna go to the bank. If you get things from the bank.
Okay, Herman has been fed, and this is the discarded starter that I'm going to make crackers out of. And I have just been keeping Herman, let's grab him, on this windowsill. If you keep them out, you do have to feed them every single day. I have not made a choice of whether or not I'm going to keep him in the fridge or not. You do have to feed them less if he's in the fridge. However, I'm kind of afraid of out of sight, out of mind. And if I don't see him sitting here on this sunny windowsill every morning, I might forget that I need to use him and bake all the things, but because I had to feed him today, I'm like, well, let's make some sourdough bread. Let's use the discard to make some yummy crackers that are good and living food for my children. So these are things to consider, but he does need less maintenance in the fridge. So you just have to choose what's best for you. He is messy right now, but he is just sitting at that little mark, and he's way older than day 4 right now. I just stopped writing on it. So I think it's about 9 days old right now, and I'm just now using it. But in about 3 hours, he should have grown up to be a big boy, and he will be ready to bake all the things. If I were to drop a little dollop of this in a tall glass of water right now, it would sink, because it is not active. Well, it is active, but not active enough to make bread. And when he has grown and I drop a dollop in a glass of water, it will float. And that means it is ready to bake all the things. So I'll show you how that works whenever we come back. I have just got all the things going on today. These are my chopped russet potatoes. I'm gonna drop them in boiling water to blanch them and get them ready for the dehydrator. I'll have to write my rosemary cracker discard recipe below, but it's a very simple recipe and it doesn't take a lot of effort, and my children absolutely love this.
Just like you know, I always want stress like you. I always want stress like you.
Now we're going to put this in the refrigerator and chill it for about an hour before we use it. So this is my proofing set I bought on Amazon. It is the Kook brand, and I came with 2 proofing bowls and liners, and I've got my scoring blade with a little cover, metal scraper and a plastic scraper, and it came with extra blades. This is really awesome, and I am going to use it. I am excited to make sourdough bread. Now I'm getting ready to make my very first loaf of sourdough bread. I'm so excited. I'm going to use a combination of the sprouted flour that I made along with some rye flour that I bought off of Amazon to make hopefully what is a super healthy, great loaf of bread for my family. And it's a bit of an experiment, so we will see how it turns out. Okay, so I stopped marking this, but that was my start. Day 2, day 3, day 4, and I just fed it about an hour ago, and it is nice and bubbly, and it is all just very active, and it smells like fresh sourdough bread. I'm very excited about that. So I'm gonna do a little test, and if it floats, it's ready to cook with. Look at that. It is floating. You know what that means? That means it is active, it is bubbly, and it is ready to make sourdough bread. If it sinks to the bottom, that means you need to feed your starter and it is not ready to cook with. But this is ready to make some delicious sourdough bread. Now I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of warm water. Then about 1 tablespoon of honey, give or take, and about 1 teaspoon of salt. This is all of the ingredients except my sourdough starter, which is sitting here all ready to go, nice and bubbly. I am going to let this sit for 10 to 15 minutes, and then I am going to mix in my starter. 3/4 cup of my starter. I am going to pour that in, mix it, and then let it sit for a few minutes. While this sits for a few minutes, I'm going to get out my cracker dough and work on that. I'm going to roll this out to about 1/8 of an inch thickness and then cut it into squares. Such a beautiful dough, and it smells absolutely fantastic. Now I'm going to cut it into little squares. I'm really excited about these. They already smell delicious, and I think it's going to be a long-term winner in our house. I'm poking some little fork holes in these so that they don't poof up. I gave my rye dough some stretches and folds. We will talk more about that later. And I have coated it in flour and put it in my proofing bowl to sit overnight. I am going to put this in the fridge with a towel over it and bake it in the morning. And hopefully it turns out as wonderful as I hope it does. And my sourdough loaf has risen to this overnight in the fridge. I'm going to give it a second to kind of warm up and come to room temperature, maybe get a little bit more of a rise on it, just a tad. I don't know if that's necessary, but I'll let it do that. And then we are going to bake some beautiful whole wheat sourdough bread for breakfast.
Hey, so yeah, we're in the process of the wife's making some sourdough for the first time from scratch, and we're going to use this cast iron Dutch oven that we haven't used before. So we're just in the process of basically seasoning and cleaning it, getting it ready. So we've just had it on the barbecue to get rid of all the wax on it. So make sure we just wipe off all that excess wax, but most of it just came off. So then I've gone ahead and put cooking oil all over it, and then we're going to throw it back on the barbecue for about an hour or so. So we have the lid down and everything because we really need to get that up pretty hot. And then basically it's going to turn black, and then you let it cool again. And if you need to, you can put oil on it again and heat it up again. But basically you're looking to see that all the oil absorbs into it. I think you can use bacon grease and stuff like that as well, but not butter. So yeah, basically then it's ready to go. And we're going to then get on with the bread.
I just fed Herman my sourdough starter for the day, and again I'm using the discard to make more crackers because my children love them so much. They ate all the ones I made yesterday, but this time I'm not going to do the precious little squares. I might in the future. I mean, it is pretty, but I'm just going to cut it with a knife to make it super simple, and I am going to put sesame seeds on top, and I am going to bake it. I saw a video that suggested putting toothpicks in them to make them get crispier and not poof up. So I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. I am poking some with a fork like I did yesterday, and then I have half of them with the toothpicks. We'll see what happens. Here are the sesame seeds I sprinkled them with. I thought it just might be something different, give them a little bit of a crunch. We'll see what happens. It's that time. My cast iron Dutch oven is seasoned and this loaf is ready to be baked. Here it is, my very first sourdough loaf of bread. I am so proud of this. Now I know it has a lot of growing to do. As my starter matures, my bread will just become better. It is the next day and I am trying a new discard cracker recipe. This one you bake in a sheet and then just crack apart into big crackers. My kids have told me they love this one just as much. It is different, but very good. And here is today's sourdough loaf. Now, I put a little bit much flour. I mean, it tastes great. There's nothing wrong with it, but more flour than I would have wanted, and it kind of poofed up into my lid and scorched a little. It's not bad. Again, it tastes fantastic. So, but not as visually pleasing as I'd want. And this wasn't a rye loaf. This was just a whole wheat loaf. Yeah, so you can see the inside. It's absolutely perfect. It tastes wonderful. And I am serving this as eggs on toast for breakfast. This is my third sourdough bread loaf attempt, and it is just a whole wheat loaf as well. I'm already liking this one better. I love the golden brown. I like my cut. We're getting there. And it's beautiful inside. I love the big bubbles, and the taste is fantastic. So we're getting places. I'm getting better at this. And today I'm going to use this for lunch to make some sourdough grilled cheese sandwiches for my kiddos. Something that I think they're going to love. Okay, so yes, my third sourdough loaf of bread attempt was definitely a winner, and these grilled cheese sandwiches with sourdough bread are just on high demand here. I'm getting requests for seconds. So this was definitely a winner. Look how well Herman is doing. Guys, he just gets better and better every day. He is more active and bubbly and I'm just so excited. I love Herman. He's like a pet. So this is going really well. So this is my fourth sourdough bread attempt, and I left the lid on too long and I scorched it and it didn't pop up the way it's supposed to on top, but we are going to cut it open and see if it is still good to eat. Okay, so despite being a very crusty bread, it is still beautiful on the inside and definitely really good to eat. There's nothing wrong with this. I was a little bit concerned. So even if you make that mistake, like I said, there's a bit more crust on it, but that's okay. Some people actually really like that. Our lunch menu says tuna sandwiches, so that's what this is today. So it is early morning, and this is my fifth and sixth sourdough loaf. One is a regular whole wheat loaf, and one is a banana bread loaf. We have banana bread on our menu this morning, so we are going to have that for breakfast, and we will use the other loaf for lunch. Here is my banana loaf. The sun is not even up yet, so it is dark, and I don't dare turn on a light because it's going to wake up my little ones. But their banana bread is here waiting for them, and it will make a delicious, good breakfast. I'm excited about the way the inside looks, and oh my goodness, guys, the way this smells throughout my house, it is just the way everyone should wake up in the morning. So it is just so good. And here is my other loaf for lunch, the whole wheat loaf. So good, and it is just starting to pop because my sourdough starter is getting more active, and I love that someday I will get the really good pop that makes the beautiful pictures. I'm getting there. So this is my white loaf of sourdough bread all sliced up. It's really good. And I think the key to slicing a really good thin sourdough bread, or any bread for that matter, is to turn it upside down and cut that way. And with a really good serrated bread knife, there's just something about the turning it upside down that makes it so much easier to get a really nice slice. So maybe that's a tip that will help you. I have found myself cutting the bread in half like that before I make sandwiches because they're just such big slices for my little ones. So I'll do it like this to make their sandwich. And that is plenty big, maybe with a few chips or veggies on the side for my little ones. So I do it like that. Okay guys, I wanted to get back with you about how some of the things turned out. The fork holes versus the toothpick holes on the crackers. I had heard the toothpick holes recommended on YouTube. I wouldn't recommend it. The fork holes actually made for a crispier cracker and so much easier. So I would recommend the fork holes. And the dehydrated scalloped potatoes, my family loves scalloped potatoes. It's a recipe I make all the time. I will share that recipe with you and link it above. It's so good and so simple. And rehydrating the potatoes actually cooked faster because they're already partially cooked because of the blanching. So it was just a fantastic way to prepare food and have it on hand. I think it lasts much longer than they say it would. But again, I'm doing that experiment and I'll let you know how it goes. But thank you for coming along and learning all the things with me. Until next time, bye.
Fly away to the sky, shining bright like a shine, dreaming high like the stars, dancing through with the cloud. And every day we search a meaning.